Anji's defense modifier value was decreased, thus decreasing the damage that he takes. Before, he would take 108 damage from this sequence. And now, he takes 103. Unlike most of the cast who have seen their 6-piece nerfed in some way, Anji's actually had his buff to catch up to the standard. They decrease the recovery of this normal overall, meaning that Anji should be safer to throw this out. We'll go ahead and look at them side by side. I'm sure Anji players will appreciate this buff quite a lot. They increase the damage of his jump dust. It does 31 damage in the previous patch. And now it does 39 damage, an increase of 8 damage overall for Anji. He uses this quite often when he's near the corner to get a wall bounce for the opponent, so he'll appreciate doing a little extra damage with this normal. The charged version of Fujin sees several changes to it. Let's start with some simple ones first. They increase the damage. Previously, it did 26. Now, it does 30 damage. They also made adjustments to the blowback. Before, the opponent was launched pretty far away from Anji. Now the opponent is a little closer to Anji, but their falling speed has been increased dramatically as well. This should open up some different combo routes for Anji to experiment with. I mentioned new combo routing because of the other change that Fujin has received. The fully charged version can now be cancelled into Fujin. And as you can see, it will combo into an uncharged version of itself. It can also be comboed into Ko, or cancelled I should say. And it can be cancelled into Sugetsu no Hakobi. This opens up a lot of potential new routes and RPS situations for Anji to explore, but again, this is only applied to the fully charged version of Fujin. If you try to use the uncharged version and do these cancels, you'll get the usual follow-ups from Fujin instead. With these new cancels, Anji has some new combo routing to explore. As you can see, an immediate Ko is going to be able to connect against the opponent. And if you fully charge Ko, you'll get both hits. This property also greatly improves the pressure Anji is able to threaten when he has a fully charged Fujin coming at you. He's able to true string into an uncharged Fujin follow-up, and because of the charge property of Fujin gives him guard point, he's able to completely stop the opponent's mash as well. This is also incredibly useful against characters who have DPs that would often try to option select against Anji's pressure. If he left a gap, the invincible reverse will be able to come out. But now if he gets into a fully charged Fujin, the opponent has to basically respect any sort of follow-up that Anji's able to threaten, because they don't know if he's going to go back into Fujin again when he starts off his pressure. But again, though, this only applies to the fully charged version of Fujin. So once you see Anji just go for a quick Fujin, you know that he's going to be going into the normal follow-ups. It's also worth noting that Arc System Works decreased the number of uses of charged Fujin before it triggers the repeated move use proration. So you're not going to be able to squeeze multiples of these into the combos and have high damage. So just be aware of that scaling change. Arc System Works decreased the knockback that Nagiha does to the opponent on block, meaning it should be more reliable for the opponent to punish the move if it's spaced poorly. This was the knockback in the previous patch. For the current patch, Asuka is a lot closer to Anji afterwards, so it should be a little more reliable for the opponent to challenge this move on block. Rin, the overhead follow-up from Fujin, has a couple of changes to it. It was pretty quick before, but definitely reactable, and it did a bit of damage. 33. You could also have a ground bounce effect on it so that if you RC'd, you got a full combo. Now they made a couple of changes to Rin. It's faster as an overhead, so it should be harder for the opponent to block. You'll also notice that Asuka did not tech on landing. That's because now Fujin gives a hard knockdown actually against them, and this is namely because they reworked this move. Instead of it being a threatening overhead that you could get combos from with meter, Anji can no longer combo off of this. They remove the ground bounce effect from it, so if you hit this against a grounded opponent, there is no more comboing with an RC. But instead, you are able to loop the pressure from it instead. So after a hard knockdown, you should be able to get a fully charged Fujin and run the same mix-ups again. Fujin is going to have a little bit of difference, so the opponent could potentially reversal or mash on you here, but with the guard point property of the spinning Fujin, as well as the fact that you're mixing between a uncharged Fujin, there's some guessing work that the opponent has to do to escape this Oki situation, I would imagine. They also made changes to the blowback, decreasing the falling speed while increasing horizontal blowback. However, with delays like this, it's pretty hard to get any sort of pickups off of this move still. Still, Anji does appreciate the fact that he's able to get a hard knockdown from the sequence, so if he's not able to break the wall in mid-screen, he'll most likely be using Rin as a combo ender into some Oki. Arc System Works increase Ko's damage. Previously, you get 32 damage off of a raw starter. And now, you get 40 damage, so an overall increase of 8. This is going to be nice for Anji, as he typically uses his move as an anti-air or in some of his combo routes. Kachoufuugetsu Kai, Anji's counter super, has a nice quality of life buff. Previously, if you did this super and the opponent then crossed you up and hit you on the other side of Anji, he would not side correct, thus whiffing the entire super move completely. Obviously, this is pretty terrible for an Anji player, as there would be matchups that they would have to be wary of the potential cross-up and not be able to rely on this to defeat the opponent. Now, Anji will side correct, allowing the super to hit in these cross-up situations. Honestly, this feels like it's a bug fix that should have existed ages ago, but it's nice that Anji finally has this. While it's a small patch for Anji in Season 4, I think he appreciates pretty much every single change that he's gotten in this patch. His 6B is better in neutral, he does a little more damage off of some of his combo routes and has access to new pressure sequences thanks to the changes to the charge version of Fujin, as well as has access to new combo routes. I think that there might be a little bit of a loss overall when it comes to the fact that you can no longer RC combo off of his Rin, but I think that's sort of fine because now it does give to a hard knockdown, which means he's able to use it as a way to end his combos and get guaranteed offense afterwards, as well as be able to basically loop his Fujin pressure because of it without spending meter. Of course, if he goes for it and it's blocked, it is still punishable, but that's what RC is for, to keep it safe on block. So I think instead of Anji mindlessly RPSing and going for those overheads and saying, no matter what happens, I'm going to just spend my meter, he now has to pay attention to whether or not the opponent gets hit or blocks to then spend his meter, creating a little bit more of a dynamic situation, and a change I think I like. The quality of life buff to a super is greatly appreciated as well. So we've already seen that the previous version of Anji could do incredibly well in brackets in the hands of players like Ooey Gooey Chewy Snicker, who got top 6 at EVO playing Anji primarily. With these changes, I can imagine that such runs are going to be possible for a player of Ooey Gooey's caliber, and I'm excited to see what tech is going to come out from Anji in the coming weeks.